In this second reading, Jesus tells stories to the people who have discredited him. And the stories are filled with some surprising, unsettling reminders about the will of God and the ways of heaven. First, he says, prophets are rarely accepted in their hometown, which, if you've ever been there, can be super frustrating. Nobody's listening to me. The truth is, prophets are rarely accepted anywhere because they're usually pointing to the dangers ahead, dangers of our own making frequently. Then Jesus goes on to tell a story about a time when the doors of heaven were shut. And the result of this shutting was drought, famine, starvation. And then something happens. In the midst of the drought, in the midst of the famine, in the midst of starvation, there comes a prophet from heaven. A prophet with insight and wisdom, with power, with answers. And the prophet had been sent from heaven. And the prophet wasn't sent to the wise, and the prophet wasn't sent to the wealthy. The prophet was actually sent to the neighbors. The prophet was sent over there to the enemies, right? The prophet from heaven was sent to a starving, lonely, powerless widow. She was kin to the enemy. Go back and read it again. Look, there were widows in Israel. And the common belief is that Israel, the people of Israel, were God's people. And then there were widows over in Zarephath. And the windows of heaven opened up. Over there in Zarephath. Over there. The windows of heaven were open to the neighbors, to the outcasts. And what's amazing is Jesus didn't tell that story once. He told it twice. The same thing happened to those who were battling with disease or dis-ease. In this case, it was leprosy. So there was leprosy in Israel and there was leprosy in Syria. And again, with Israel being thought of as, the circle of whole and holy godly people. Where did the healing take place? Over there, among the marginalized, among the outcasts. And you know what? When the people of Jesus' hometown hear the stories of God, which he is telling and retelling, they were enraged. They were furious. That was their response.